Welcome back to this weekend edition of the Channel 2 News. The CNMI's 17th legislature enacted Public Law 17-27, which prohibited any person from possessing, selling, offering for sale, trading, or distributing shark fins in the CNMI. The law's passage was hailed as a victory for conservationists around the globe, but up until recently, those protections were on the verge of vanishing beneath the pen of federal regulators. We contacted a former CNMI resident who continues to champion the cause of shark protection in the Pacific and beyond to explain. Former Beautify CNMI co-creator Angelo Villagomez left the CNMI in 2009 and now works as the manager of the Pew Charitable Trust's Shark Sanctuary Program, where he works with countries around the world interested in protecting sharks, including places such as Palau, Marshall Islands, Cook Islands, Bahamas, and the British Virgin Islands. He currently runs 2 programs in the Pacific and 7 in the Caribbean. Villagomez explains how sharks became protected in the CNMI.
The work that protected sharks about 4 years ago was led by Diego Benavente, former lawmaker and lieutenant governor, and he introduced a law that was based on a similar law from Hawaii that banned the sale, trade, and possession of shark fins.
He says the CNMI's shark protection law is one of the strongest in the United States.
It's modeled after the law that passed in Hawaii. The laws that are passed in the mainland aren't as strong and have a lot of exemptions. So all of those laws were exempted last year, and now the only laws that have not been exempted are Hawaii and Guam. So CNMI is one of the last ones for them to leave alone.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration proposed the implementation of regulations for the Shark Conservation Act in May of 2013 that could have undermined state shark fin bans like the one passed in the CNMI.
The federal fisheries have disagreed with some of the conservation programs that have taken place in the CNMI. And so the federal government, when they were trying to implement another law related to sharks, they put in language into this federal rule that would have overturned 11 state and territorial shark fin bans. So it's not just the CNMI that has a law like this, it's also Guam, American Samoa, Hawaii, the entire west coast of the United States, I think New York and Delaware, so a lot of different places.
In December of 2014, NOAA Assistant Administrator for Fisheries Eileen Sobek wrote to Land and Natural Resources Secretary Manny Pangilinan, informing him of the exemption of the CNMI from impending federal fisheries regulations that would have undermined CNMI law. Villagomez explains what that news means to the CNMI.
This announcement that just came out, the federal government has decided that they're not going to overturn the CNMI law, that it's going to remain in place. There was a little bit of a compromise, but the law still stands in place, and sharks will remain protected in Saipan and throughout the entire CNMI.
He says the compromise will not negatively affect the Commonwealth.
The compromise that they came to was that, you know, fishermen will be able to land a shark, and if they want to consume the meat, that's fine, but they will not be able to trade the fins.
Villagomez hopes the federal government will ultimately do the same for the remaining jurisdictions.
I'm hopeful that the federal government will leave the Hawaii law alone and the Guam law alone, because these laws were developed locally with local input. There were public hearings. Most of them passed with bipartisan support, and you know, local people should be able to manage their natural resources the way that they want to.
Villagomez says NOAA took into consideration the tsunami of public comments submitted in support of maintaining the protections enacted by local governments.
I think overall we helped submit 180,000 comments for the government not overturning these laws. And just to give you an idea of how many that is, usually the government gets about 5 comments on issues like this. And so it wasn't just an outcry of people in the CNMI that care about natural resources. It's the whole world. People really do care about sharks. They're one of the big conservation issues of the day, and people really understand that they're worth more alive than fished.
He says protecting sharks has the potential to translate into real dollars for the CNMI.
A great example of why sharks are important, I think there's a new business being opened up on Micro Beach where people are going to come and look at sharks, right? There's like a shark pen, and sharks can actually be worth millions of dollars. I've had the good fortune to go to Palau almost every year for the last 5 years, and about 8% of their GDP it comes from people going just to see sharks. They have dedicated shark dives. The sharks bring in about $18 million a year. So protecting sharks and having them in the water, they end up serving tourist attractions for divers.
Villagomez praised the support of local leaders throughout the process.
Really want to thank Governor Enos. He really stood up for this law at the Chief Executive Summit a couple of months ago. He, as part of his speech, he asked the federal government to protect his law, to protect the local law. And it's really great to see that NOAA is allowing the CNMI to keep the shark law that they passed, and also to allow all the mainland states to keep their shark laws in place.
He also credited House Speaker Joe Guerrero.
I've been working with him for the last several years at the Association of Pacific Island Legislatures. This is a meeting that takes place all over the Pacific every year, and he's been really great at leading on shark issues, not just at home, but across all of Micronesia.
What beautiful video for that. The